Good evening, family. I'm going to continue the lecture series on the anatomy of existence and the power of thought and belief. I'm going to take right off because I want to go back a little bit and focus on uh, talking more about the anatomy of existence, which is the primary reason for writing my pamphlet. Uh, I think that's the most important thing to focus on first, uh, because this is where the base of a lot of our questions and a lot of our fears and a lot of our confusion comes from. This not knowing the pieces and the parts of where you are. I mean, we just thrust into this existence, and without teachers, you, you'll just be floating along, stumbling and bumbling and trying to figure things out, wasting a lot of time that you could be using on honing your skills, which is about controlling your thoughts and making what you want manifest in the world, and also making sure that your spirit is in harmony and healthy. You have a healthy spirit as well as a healthy body. Because both need to be worked on. But if you don't know they are two separate things that exist, you don't know that you can't even get to the part of working on it. You don't even know it exists. Okay, so the main thing is we gotta understand and know what are the components of existence itself. You are in existence by virtue of the fact that you were born. You were born into existence, which is God itself. And God is set up into all these different parts and areas and components that you need to understand, and they each have like different functions, and there are rules that govern how to get and navigate and get along and master these functioning within these different environments, elements of the environment. The whole thing is the environment. God is an environment. And that's why we use the term, we serve at the pleasure of God. Just as your heart serves at the pleasure of you, within the body that you were born into, that heart serves at the pleasure of the driver. And you are the driver, or what I call the watcher. The watcher, because you are the one that experiences the feelings and the sounds and the tastes and the colors and the things that you see and the smells that you experience. Okay, and the tactile things. Tactile means physical touch. There's feelings that are emotional, and then there are physical feelings that it's called tactile. Means you touch. Tactile. Okay, tactile. Okay, so what are the components of this existence? First and foremost, you need to know that there is a law or rule of dualities. Okay, God as we know it, I call the universal spirit, is the ultimate. Everything falls within God, and God is therefore within everything. Okay, everything God is in everything through and through. So that's the top of the heap. Now, what are the character? Well, first of all, let me finish the structure. And then there is us. We are the micro expressions of God, and all the other entities that are also been created in this environment that we were born into. Okay, that I call existence, which is really the body politic of God. But for the sake of separation and structure, let's say God is God and everything within God is the environment, just for the sake of structure. Okay, um, and in that environment, that which is from our perspective as human beings, all we know is where we are. And right now, human beings are the beings that seem by evidence to have the most ability to manipulate things. And that's why I call ourselves micro gods, because we have the ability by use of our very thoughts to make things manifest from God. God makes everything manifest. And that's why I say we are micro gods, because it's only through our thoughts that things are now manifest. I don't know how it was done before we became humans and started, walking the planet, when we were just cytoplasmic, because they say we were just some little cytoplasmic fluid or whatever, micro beings in some fluid form, and then we evolved into this human form that we are now. But at this stage of our very evolution, we are the ones that do all the manifesting in the planet. Now we're in the driver's seats right now in more ways than one. First, you have levels of driving. First level is your body, your mind. Okay, your body and your mind are the two realms that are within this vehicle. It's made up of a body, and it has a mind that controls, a whole bunch of other stuff. Some stuff is automatic. Some stuff is voluntary, for lack of a better word. You can choose to make things happen. You can choose to stand up. You can choose to walk. You can choose to talk. But your heart beating, your autonomic systems, your nervous systems, your kidneys, your livers, and all the organs within your body that are working and functioning, you don't choose that. Those are on autopilot. See, there's always dualities, things you choose to and things you don't. There's a rule of duality, which I should have started out by saying, I think I did. But the major components of duality is God, the macrocosmic being, and human beings, the microcosmic beings. The word being that we use for God is just for the sake of communication. Because basically a being is something that just is like us. We are human beings. But God is not like a human being. A human being has all kinds of components and attributes and things that it can feel and experience, that the universal spirit or God is a different kind of being. It's not a human being. It is a ultimate being. And ultimate beings have certain characteristics as well that you can kind of draw from your human being. These are drawing conclusions and kind of just learning by observation. For example, we do not feel sorry for the cells that are dying. We don't get angry for the cells that are bumping into the other cells that are within our body, and cells that are killing off other cells, doing the process of just, homeostasis, which is the running of the body, just the functioning of the body. We don't feel any of that. So by consequent, you can conclude that the universal spirit does not feel all the things that we do to each other. That's stuff we made up, because we didn't know no better. But there are systems in place that called karmic law. You put out evil, negative stuff. Evil, negative stuff is going to come around and attack you or somebody you care about because you put it out there. Now, God is not sitting there saying, okay, all right, get that one. Okay, I just noticed that one. Get that one. Autopilot, automatic system in place. You do ugly, ugly comes back. You do love, love comes back. You do healing, healing comes back. You do healthy, healthy stays with you. You do wealth, you share wealth, wealth will be shared with you. It's called the law of reciprocity within this automatic system. It's the law of reciprocity. You put whatever you put out, you're going to get back. You do selfish, you're going to get selfish. You won't be able to get the things you want because you're not giving things out. If you're doing hoarding and not giving and not sharing, then things you want are going to stop coming. That's just how it works. I don't care how much wealth you're born into. That will burn out real soon if you just keep doing ugly like you're doing. Believe me, it's going to come back. And the bigger you do it, the bigger it comes back. It's just how it works. And you got to accept, you got to understand that basic functionality. It's more or less depending on who you are. Okay? But that's the rule of reciprocity. What you put out, that's what you get. Back to the duality now of between macro and micro. I'm going to talk a little bit more about macro God because just to get that out the way. But it's not a whole lot about God you can really get into because it's too big. We're micro beings. You just need to understand. And the things about God, you just got to just know. But there's nothing you can do about it. This is the key thing. That's why I won't spend too much time on God. But the one thing I want to focus on about God is this feeling part. This mental stuff that people in their own mental anxieties and their mental states or whatever they're going through start superimposing human attributes to an inhuman being. Can't do that. Human stuff, rules and regulations and laws and everything that apply to us don't apply to God. Nothing applies to God. God just is. Period. And see, that's why it's so simple. God is easy to deal with because God just is every doggone thing. And you can't negotiate with God. It's just what you need to do is understand how it works. And it's not God, how God works. You got to understand the rules that God has set into motion that oversee human beings. God is not really a being. God just is. See, being implies that you're being stupid or you're being ignorant or something like that. See, we're beings. We do stuff, and I only use the word being just for the sake of conversation and for the sake of structure. But God is not being nothing. God just is. Being, because being implies that you cannot be. God cannot not be. Now, being also applies only to our bodies. Since we are extensions of God as microcosmic beings, we're microcosmic expressions of God having a human experience. And that human experience was ordained and put into motion by God at some time we don't know. Don't matter. Bottom line is that's the way it is. Now you got to get your head around that and get into acceptance of certain things. Don't matter when God put this in motion. This is the way it is, and it's about you getting into focusing on your human side and get into mastering the tools and the skills and the gifts that we were each born with. But I want to take time now and talk about all of this structure so that we understand the language that I'm going to be using as we deal with the major part of this pamphlet, which is mastering control over your thoughts, your mind space, and how to make manifest how long you keep thoughts in your mind. So, the goal of doing all of that is to make your life more pleasurable and give you a greater sense of control over your lives. And at the same time, I want to put to bed all of this crazy, insane nonsense about two things: the heaven and the hell fairy tale, because I can't even call it a myth, because a myth has some sense of truth to it. But the heaven and hell story don't have not a single iota, nothing. There's no small element I can even speak to. A nanite, it doesn't even have that much in value in connection to truth. No such thing as heaven and hell. Just don't exist. Something somebody made up And the reason they made it up, because people were so barbaric during the evolutionary process can be very ugly. It's like they say sausage making. It can be very ugly. You may come out with a very tasty, perfected thing in the end, but the process of making it is ugly. And sometimes a lot of these rules are put into place, like, for instance, the use of salt. People use salt because there was no refrigeration. Okay? So now that you have refrigeration, you just stop using salt. Okay, same thing applies to the heaven and hell story. Now that we know the truth about who we are, there's no need for a heaven and hell story. Put that to bed. Get rid of that. We now have evolved to the point where we realize that you exist for a period of time, a finite period of time, and then you go back into this body fails, and you, in the twinkling of an eye, you're put into another body. And the only reason you leave this body is because it's not working no more. It times out. It has a shelf life. And just how it is. That's just how it is. It's not no why or reason, oh, it's terrible. No. It's just how it is. That's how God has set all of this stuff up. So we can put that to bed. Right? Heaven and hell, there is no heaven and hell. After you leave here, it's like that, and you're in another body. I mean, it's just because you got to remember, you're going back to yourself as God. And oh, no, I can't just put that out there. I got to explain. One of the other two characteristics of God is omnipresent, which means everywhere at all times, and omnipotent, which means can create whatever it wants at any time. All God does is just create stuff. That's another characteristic of God. And the other characteristic, that's the omnipotent part that omnipotent speaks to, that God can create whatever it wants. That's the potency, that's the power. The omnipresence of God speaks to the fact that God is everywhere at the same time, which means, therefore, there is no such thing as time for God. Time only exists for us human beings. Okay? As human beings, these are the attributes of the humanness. The attributes of God, no time. No feelings. God has no feelings, no time. God just exists. In order to even experience your oneness with God, you have to stand still, because God does not move. God doesn't need to move. Movement, it speaks to you actually having some relation to time, because you got to get from one place to another place, and it takes time to get to those places. Even if you have a wormhole and you're going through at the speed of above light, you still got to get there, and it's going to take time, whether it's light years or months or whatever. It's still, those are all elements of time. God that doesn't relate to God. When you're omnipresent, that means you're everywhere at the same time. So everywhere you as a micro being is talking about going to, God's already there. So therefore, God's time don't exist. These are my theories. Okay, this is my belief system. Okay, and I ask anybody to prove me wrong. You know, the other thing about God is omnipotent. So God is like this machine that does nothing but manufacture stuff. But there are rules. The machine only manufactures things that are consistent and serious and filled with emotion, and it's drawn, what you want is clear, consistent, and repeated over and over and over again. Look at your heartbeat over and over and over again. Continuous heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. When you keep doing that, that is the rhythm of God. God is rhythmic, cycles. Heart compresses, it expands. Cycle, in, out. Sun comes up, goes down. Cycle, in, out. You burn, you're born. Your vehicle is, you're born into a vehicle. Your vehicle lasts a certain amount of time. You come into form by being born into a vehicle, and then you go out of form. When your vehicle wears out and your ability to be the watcher through that particular form has timed out, you instantly, that body drops off, you turn this way, you instantly, you're a child again, you're infant, you're being born. The light you see is going to be birth. Why is that set up that way? That's what God wants. A lot of stuff you're going to hit this wall over and over again, and this wall is impenetrable. That's why these are immutable laws. They cannot be changed because God has set all of this in motion. You got to accept that. What else has God set in motion? God has set in motion that all of this will happen at the pleasure of God. Why? Because God wants it to happen. God has set it in motion. God will extend itself into a vehicle. That vehicle will get a name, and the universal spirit will now experience existence through us. That's why I believe we have the ability to use our thoughts that go through our mind space in a rhythmic, continuous, repeated way with the feelings, the sounds, the tastes of things that have not even manifest yet. But when you utilize the power of your mind, of mind control or thought control through your minds, this is what Rhonda Burns, the secret is all about. Learning to control your mind. But what you need to understand so you can put to bed all these things and be able to focus on controlling your thoughts that are flowing through your mind space is you need to not have questions about, well, but why, what happened to the heaven and the hell story? God is angry at me and because I did this happened because God is mad at me because I killed something. Stop all that. And don't blame God for what you did something wrong and the karmic law enforcement comes around and puts a foot where you didn't want it to go. Don't blame God for that. You did it. And the thing is, this stuff is automatic. So you got to understand that you didn't know. Now I'm teaching you the rules. So now you won't get kicked in the butt anymore. You don't have to worry about that because now you know you won't make that mistake again. But it's my job is to make sure you understand the rules as to why you keep getting slapped in the back of the head and because you're doing silly, stupid things. Because you don't know. You're just like any child. That's how you learn. You make mistakes. Okay? So these are the rules. What you put out, you get back. God is what God is. This has all been set in motion by God. You can never die. That's the key thing that I was trying to point to about this heaven and hell story. Forget about all that. The reason this was set up is because that's what God wants. What God wants is for you to come into existence, live life to the fullest, utilize your thoughts and your brain, okay, to make manifest positive, constructive, good, loving, compassionate things in your world. If that's what you want for you, you better be putting it out. Shorty, you being mentally ill and born into a vehicle that is dysfunctional. Well, those of us that are functional need to be able to identify that in our brothers and our sisters and get the medication to them as soon as possible. Because if you have a bunch of dysfunctional people in your environment is going to be a mess. And that's up to you. Every situation that, every adverse situation or challenging situation or challenge in the environment that we have, the universal spirit will manifest some kind of X-Man or Superman or Superwoman or somebody that will come in to fix that problem. And sometimes that person is you. That's how it works. The only reason the Superman comes in is because there's a problem. The only reason there was an FDR is because people were starving to death. And the rich people around us were sitting around watching, laughing, smoking cigars. Okay? This is how this works. This white supremacy crap. Done. They don't even know it yet. That was back in the time when people were brutes and they didn't know no better, and they were trying to hoard all this stuff and wealth and get people to work for them for free and stuff. That's over. The internet is here. Knowledge is flowing freely to everybody at no cost. And when there's knowledge, there is power. And when there's power and each individual has self-control and you were born with judgment, don't let nobody tell you lean not onto your own judgment. That is crap. God don't give you things it don't want you to use. Anybody tell you to don't use something that you were born with? Unless it's a dysfunction. You were born dysfunctional. You were born a sociopathic murderer. Now, you can try to use that all you want, but eventually you're going to get caught and they're going to put you down. Kill the body, save the soul. I believe in that 100%. And if whoever you are out there, you were born to do that. Find these dysfunctional bodies, kill them. Save the soul, let them be born as somebody else. That's how it go. It's not personal, it's just business, God business. Okay? I'm not talking about being no mass murderer. I'm talking about FBI, SWAT, Supermen, X-Men, whatever you want to call them. People, antibodies that correct dysfunction. See? And those dysfunctions are born to remind us. You want peace and harmony in your world, you got to fight for it. You got to work at it. You got to get to work. Evolution doesn't just happen. Evolution happens because people are doing work. They call it service. These politicians are up there in Washington, D.C. Don't let anybody tell you that they just in there having fun building money. Don't buy into that crap. Those people are up there to do service. Maybe some of them are doing abusive things, but you know what? We weed them out. Bring in term limits. Get rid of them Supreme Courts. Nobody should be on the Supreme Court for life. Get rid of that. Everybody should have term limits. Everybody. That's how you put that to bed. And eventually, it's going to happen. Everybody should have health care. God lets everybody breathe. Everybody should have health care. Everybody should have education. I shouldn't even have to do this. Because when you were born and you go to school, you should have been taught this. So I'm a little ticked off about that. But part of my being ticked off is God compelling me to be and do what I'm doing. And I couldn't do it if I wasn't ticked off a little bit. Because I see an injustice going on here. This is not right. I shouldn't have to do this. Go on YouTube and tell you things about God and yourself and to break down these structures. It should have been done. You should have learned this in school. That's what school education is about. Okay? But since it wasn't done, I'll do it. And then maybe eventually it'll get put in the schools. And then we can get rid of all of these religion nonsense. Take all that money you're wasting on that, put it in the schools. Educate people. Teach them how to build stuff. Talk to them about righteousness and goodness. If they want to pray, let them go pray somewhere else. But don't force anybody to pray. Teach them how to meditate. Teach them how to control their thought flow. See, then you don't have to tell them to pray. They'll figure that out if they want to. But if you teach people how to control self, how to learn to love yourself, you can't love nobody else until you understand who you are and that God is working through you, and God loves you because everything God gives is free. Don't cost nothing. Air, water, it's been provided. Food grows out of the trees. You don't have to pay for going up to an apple tree and grabbing an apple off. They just came up with that because of the people who want to control all of the resources on the planet came up with that. But we heading toward a Star Trek economy, folks. That's the evolutionary process. Watch the movie Star Trek. Watch the movie Star Wars. You don't see nobody buying any food. You don't see anybody paying for health care. If they get an arm lopped off, you don't see nobody pay and put down a medical card for that. That's these brutes who have decided that the planet is round and finite, and therefore they are running up front to get control and buy up and control everything so they can spoon feed it to you. It's all about control, folks. And that's why they don't want you to know this. Because once you learn how to control your thoughts and start making manifest things in your environment that feed into healthy, universal acceptance of all living things as a part of God, you can't charge yourself. When you see God in everything, how can you ask that thing to pay for that which God has given all of us for free? Won't work. That's the end of capitalism. Communism, all of these isms, they all got to go. Eventually, not right away. I don't want no radical stuff. Eventually, we step by step, slowly but surely, we're moving in that direction. That's where we're going to go with this. Star Trek. You want to know about symbolic movies that really lay it all out for you? Watch the movie Matrix. Keanu Reeves, for some reason, he sees this and he picks it. He picks it out. Star Wars, George Lucas. He knows all this stuff. Made it into a movie. Got it from a lady who wrote the movie. Okay, he just directed it, but he was compelled to do it because it's time for us to know this stuff. We have evolved to a level where now we need to know this stuff. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing, because it's time for me to do it. It's time for you to hear it. It's time for this seed of structure to be planted in the minds of each and every one of you that are watching this. Okay, you need to know the structure of this existence. Okay, and then once you understand the rules, like Monopoly, you play within the rules and you play to win. Okay, but you got to understand where this is going. Perfection is something that human beings never reach. It's a cycle. You come from knowing everything, omnipotent, omnipresence, everywhere, have the power to do and create anything you want, to being the exact opposite, a child born ignorant, don't know nothing. Have to be educated, have to be taken care of, have to put diapers on it and feed it, otherwise it'll just die. The vehicle will die, and the spirit will miss out on the journey of evolving, coming as a microcosmic being and going through the process of gestation, growing to a mature physical being. But the maturation of the spirit riding in the being is a whole nother infinite, never-ending journey that you need this physical being to be on this stage of we call life, where all the action is happening. Once you go back to the macro being, there's no need to do anything because you already know everything. So you have to come here where you know nothing. And you take the ride to learning who you are and now becoming a better person, becoming more perfect. That's why the United States Constitution works, because it has that phrase in it, becoming a more perfect union. Togetherness. It didn't say to become more perfect a Republican and Democrat, independent, a socialist and a communist and a whateverist and a capitalist and a this and the this. It says no, each time you have a new cycle of the Congress, you have another opportunity to improve and become a more perfect. It didn't say become perfect, it said become more perfect. Okay, that's what the goal is, to seek perfection, something that I now realize you never will reach. But the goal, the universal spirit has put us here. We are the universal spirit. We put ourselves here for the sake of the journey. Got nothing else to do. Hell, when you're over there, you know every damn thing. Nothing to do. Nowhere to go, because you're everywhere already. What fun is that? No, what you do is when you get in a situation like that, you do the opposite. When you know everything and you're perfect and you have all the power in existence, what do? You create a microcosmic part of yourself that don't know nothing and have to learn all over again. That's where the fun is. You gotta understand. And I defy anybody to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong if you can. Good luck. Because I happen to know you can't beat this. This is God's will. And this is obvious. If you got eyes, you're going to see this. So now that we got that out, we got all the components out. God is a macrocosmic being. We're a microcosmic being. God has no feelings, no emotions, none of that. The microcosmic beings are born into an environment where there is a myriad of rules and laws and forces that are automatic. Okay, one of the rules is you are born in a vehicle that has a physical brain that houses a metaphysical mind. In other words, the mind is the whole environment that the thoughts and everything move through. That is metaphysical. You cannot touch it. Physical is things you can touch. Thoughts cannot be touched. They're metaphysical. Okay? That's what you need to understand. But thoughts can trigger a physical manifestation. And the way the universe works is there's always two. Macrocosmic being, microcosmic human being. Okay? Selfish people, good people who are sharing people, compassionate people. They value life. You have some people that are born dysfunctional. They do not value life. The balance, seeking the balance and keeping the balance, keeping not too many dysfunctional people helped or corrected by the functional people. Okay? Because the goal is to traverse through existence in the middle. Not too far left, not too far right. Those are the dualities. Okay? Cycles. There's the cycle. The cycle of life is, and I did a visual dramatization of which I'm going to show you, that shows a circle that starts at the bottom. You come up, that's birth. The bottom is birth. As you get to the peak and you reach the top, that's maturity, both physical and mental and spiritual maturity. Then you go into your senior years where you're wise and you're sharing. All along you're sharing and you're giving, you're sharing the information that you've learned, and you're creating more magicians, more people who are using their thought processes and their minds and their abilities to make manifest positive and beautiful things. And then your vehicle times out, and then instantly you're born into another child. Now what you have done in your life, all the giving and the compassion, everything, the autopilot says give that child put them, because you got to ask yourself, why are some people born in dirt poor? Why are some people born wealthy? Why are some people born right in the middle, somewhere in between those two? Why? How? How are people born with skills already that they've never been trained? Because it came with them from what the work they've done in their last life, or their spirit remembers that, and the spirit continues. The body dies, but the spirit continues. So you'll be born into another body that is commensurate with the efforts and the goodness and the work that you have done in this lifetime. But if I didn't tell you this, you wouldn't understand. You think you getting over. You think you trying to avoid, meditating, and avoid going to the gym, and avoid eating right, and just smoking and doing whatever you want, and thinking you getting over. But now that you know this, you know you don't do that. You might be born a quadriplegic next time. See? And then you wish you had done the right thing, but you won't even remember all the crap you did this time. You just be born a quadriplegic, and baby, you in trouble. You're going to be living a rough life depending on where you born as a quadriplegic. You born a quadriplegic in America, you all right. But you be born a quadriplegic in India, depending on how evolved India is at the next time, but it will be different. It'll be better. No doubt about it, because another thing about evolution and the universal spirit, we don't go back. No, we don't go back. Don't worry about that. Every time you're born, it's going to be a little bit better. That's another rule. Evolution never goes backwards. Evolution only moves forward. Okay? Another rule. Just understand that. Remove that layer of fear. Ain't gonna go back. No. You read your history so you'll know what happened in the past. That's what history is for. The future is not written yet. We can make that whatever we want. So, but all you really have is right now. This is what Eckhart Tolle teaches, and what he really hit me with a mind grenade when he said that. That exploded and triggered an unbelievable amount of thoughts in my head. Wow, he's right. All we have is right now. Every time you're born, I can tell you about the things that have happened in the past by reading history to you, and then we can tell you what we hope for and what we're working towards, the visions. But until they manifest, and when they manifest, they will manifest right here into this now time. It's fascinating. If you can get your head around this, you should be fascinated. You should be extremely relieved. Let's recap, because I'm running out of time now. I got 12 more minutes. I'll try to do each one of these lectures in 1 hour. You should be fascinated from what we just talked about, what I just revealed to you, if you didn't know this stuff. 1, you can never die. Never die. 2, heaven and hell don't exist. The only hell or heaven you're going to ever know is right here, right now, because Eckhart Tolle was right. All we have is right now. Heaven and hell is a con job. Those are the con men in the churches and all those people like this thing in the White House right now. This is 2019. We got a thing in the White House conning everybody into all kinds of crazy crap, which is good, because now you know what you don't want. See, we needed to see that so we'll know exactly what we don't want. Somebody telling us it's us against them people over there. How can you be a them when them is God too? See, when you get into this and you know the truth, this is the truth. The them over there is just underdeveloped people who were not trained, and they were worse educated than we were. That's why they can con us into thinking we need to go ahead and let the 2 kids that died, they're just 2 lousy Central American no good kids. If you buy into that, there's 2 choices. You're either righteous or you're not. Wrong finger. I didn't mean to do that. you know. But it's two. You're either righteous or you're not. And if you're not, don't forget, I told you, there's autopilot. Don't blame God. It's not about God. It's about getting you right spiritually. And if God, if the autopilot have to come out and slap you upside your head and take out one of your kids because you were glee and happy that this kid got killed and died of water. You see the border agents breaking the water bottles, denying people the very thing that God gives freely to every human being. If you can't see the wrong and the inharmonious, unrighteous, just negativity in that, that's why you need to be listening to this right here. Because I'm gonna tell you, you are unleashing. If you are in your mind and in your spirit feeling good about those two kids that died, you're unleashing the McCracken. And it's not God. Don't blame it on God. It's you and what you brought on yourself because you didn't know. Now you know. So you know what I want you to do? I want you to, now that you know what's right and what's wrong, forgive yourself for allowing yourself for falling and getting conned into believing that crap with these supremists, thinking they're better than everybody else that God has ordained and set up out here. Everybody get the same water, air. How could you be better? Just because you got a little more money? You was able to go to a better school than most people? You think that you're better? You're not better. You're just lucky. And it's a test to see, are you going to let it go to your head and allow this flesh? Now remember, what I didn't mention, I mentioned in the last thing, is this vehicle has a mind of its own. It has a survival mechanism of its own, but the spirit that rides within it is supposed to take charge. That's why if the spirit doesn't take charge, then the body will do its own thing. It's called it's nefesh. We call it nefesh in spiritual culture. And nefesh has a mind of its own. That's that demon that's sitting over here. They said the good demon in the bag. The good demon is the spirit. The negative demon is the nefesh, because the nefesh is always going to struggle to survive, and it is brutal. It is very brutal. It has no compassion for anything other than its own survival. So the spirit is born into this vehicle, and the spirit has to bring everything to the center. When the nefesh and the flesh starts trying to rule and starts sending you off into negative stuff, triggering automatic stuff that's going to bring hell on the nefesh. But if you're riding in that vehicle, you're going to catch hell too. So you better take charge. You didn't know you were supposed to take charge? I'm telling you now, you better take charge. Because your spirit is going to feel everything that this nefesh, you allow this body to be out of control and allow your flesh to rule you and make you do drugs or do whatever and be happy that somebody got killed, a little child, and you unleash them a cracking on your behind. And if you got kids, don't be upset. Your kid all of a sudden get ran over by a car. That's because you put it out there. That's what came around. It's not going to always affect you. It's going to affect somebody you care and love about, like that woman and that father cared about that child. Why you think they brought him this distance, the desert with no water? You think who would volunteer for that? You got to think about it. It's just insane. It's just insane. So that's something you got to learn. Now you know. Okay? So now, another thing is, we talked about the duality of, and there's also as above, so below. We covered that by talking about the macrocosmic being and the microcosmic being. And we covered the difference between the dualities of deaths. There is a spiritual death that comes from just not knowing. In other words, I didn't say that or cover that, but there's the physical death of the body. The body dies, the spirit never dies. Okay, so there really is no such thing as a spiritual death. Your spiritual death is just the way you're living, not knowing that you're a spiritual being. You're already born dead. because you don't know who you are. That's why I say you're born in sin. It's not that your body is sinful, but you're born ignorant of what you are and who you are. So you're born dead. You're born in, that's what the term means. That you're spiritually dead in the sense that you are spiritually unaware that you are a spirit. But this all has been put into motion by us. And us, in my vocabulary and the context of what I'm teaching, us is the universal spirit. So we put this into motion. This is the system. This is the cycle. Okay? And I talked about balance. And I talked about the kind of, what I believe is the kind of life you'll have in your next life, when you're reborn, will be impacted by how well and how moral and how decent you are in this life. How much sharing you do openly and freely in this life will impact how you will be treated as an infant in your next life. See, if you don't know that, we cannot perpetuate positive, healthy, decent, harmonious beings. Vehicles, the very vehicles will be born more righteous because you know now. And your thoughts reverberate through time because we are impacted by time. These vehicles and our microcosmic spirit, that extension of God, is affected by time. There is an element of time that I believe is a part of this microcosmic experience. I believe that. It's the only thing that will explain why people are the diversity of situations that people are born into. You know, some people are born blind, some people are born this, some people are born deaf, some people are born, all these different ways. It's the only thing that could explain it. Some people are born extremely gifted. Okay, it's the only thing that can explain it. And because how do you explain somebody who's born so extremely gifted and yet commit suicide? Like a Robin Williams. Whitney Houston virtually committed suicide by continuing to just, I don't know what's going on with that. But I think it has to do, I have a family member who was a pretty well-known actress. And she experienced that level, there is a certain level of privacy that you lose once you become a public figure. And you're no longer able to walk freely throughout the society. And I think the loss of that freedom, it does something to the human spirit, and I think that's what causes the confinement, the imprisonment. Michael Jackson and all these people had to walk around with disguises, and people thought that was funny. But when I experienced it with my aunt and what she was going through, that wasn't funny. She was in a prison. She virtually could not go anywhere without being mobbed or not mobbed, but you know what I mean. People just running up to her, and it's constant. Everywhere you go is constant, non-stop. So after a while, you just can't go anywhere. Too many people know you. So I could understand how that would create a virtual prison that would make people so miserable. I don't know why they would kill themselves. I don't know. Maybe lack of creativity. I don't know. I know I'd find a way around that one. But anyway. Okay, so we pretty much covered all of the components. Okay, duality, the characteristics of both. And one thing I didn't cover is the relationship between the macro and the micro. This symbiotic give and take. Now, I'm kind of going out on a limb here by even saying and kind of contradicting what I said about God. And it's not, I used to think that it was that God derives some form of pleasure by experiencing feelings and emotions through us as microcosmic being, as if it goes through the wire and transmits back to the being. But that's not true. I can't really complete that thought, and I can't accept that. It just doesn't make sense. I think it just is what it is. God says, I am that I am. In the Bible, in some of these writings, it says, I am that I am. And that to me triggers a thought, a sense of logic that says, that expression, I am that I am, meaning when I am a microcosmic being, I am that. When I am macro, I am macro. Never the two shall impact each other. It just is. We set this in motion. And the reason I came to that conclusion of we was somewhere in a biblical phrase. The Bible has some use, to me, because it has a lot of things in it that are little bits and pieces of the truth. And I heard something say somewhere in the Bible that says, and it says that somewhere in there it said something about we. And when I heard the word we, and it triggered a bunch of logic that said, what do you mean we? Who is this we? Is it the Holy Trinity? Who is that we? And that's what got me on this path to understand this we thing. And now it makes sense that it was revealed to me that there is a macrocosmic and there's a microcosmic. And that's the we. That's the Holy Trinity combined as one entity, one symbiotic relationship where you're born, you're instant, you go through life, you reach maturity, you reach senior years, your vehicle dies, you're reborn again. And all that process serves the macrocosmic and the microcosmic relationship. It's a relationship that I don't fully understand the macrocosmic side of it, because right now I'm in a microcosmic being. But meditation is what gets you to feel and intuit from the macro. That's why you have to stand still and commune with your macro self. Each of us has a macro channel. I believe that. But in order to experience that which is omnipresent, you cannot be moving. You have to stand still and do as the macro does. Stand still and experience the macro. And I think it's more of a feeling than it is a speaking relationship. It is just a feeling. And by continually going back through your meditative practices, you're going to experience that oneness, that feeling of oneness with all things. And it may be a fleeting moment at first, but soon you'll be able to feel it like I do. I feel it almost all the time. But at the same time, I know I'm micro, and so therefore I be about the business of being the best micro I can be. Because now I know. And there is a joy that comes from that. And that's the joy I'm trying to get to you. I'm trying to give it to you. Because if you knew what I knew, if you felt what I felt, you hear in the Bible again, it says something like, you fear no man. Because you know the truth. You don't fear dying because you know it's no such real thing for you. Vehicle might die. You might miss the people, but once your spirit leaves this, all the memories and everything stay with the vehicle. It do not go with you. On a subconscious level, maybe some things do go with you. But until you learn to commune with your macro self, you will never experience that. And so get into meditation, get into standing still. Find your chime, find your breathing technique. Okay, find what works for you, because what works for me may not work for you. Okay, every one of us has to find our own system that works for you. Each of us is a different shaped leaf from a tree of life, tree of the macro. Okay? Each one of us is different. And all I'm doing is getting you on the path. But your path is going to be different from mine. My job is just to let you know that there is a path, that these are the components of this existence, and who you are within this existence, and the power that is yours to use or abuse by the use of your thoughts and the use of your mind space, and how long you allow thoughts to stay in your mind, and pick and choose what thoughts you want to have in your mind. I don't mean that a whole bunch of other thoughts are not going to be coming through. You're going to be, because we're creatures of our environment. You know, somebody bumps into us, somebody, does something vicious to us, your flesh is going to react and your spirit is going to feel it. But if you don't know there's a separation between the two, you automatically reach out and punch back. But once you know there's a separation, you're going to hesitate. Whoa, hey, oh, they didn't bump into me on purpose. Not going to get into that. Now you're thinking. Now you're taking control. You're taking charge. That's what I want you to do. Because once you begin to do that, now you start tapping into real power. The power that is surrounded by and allows the universal spirit to use you because you're worthy. Because you have proven that you can control your vehicle. And the more control you get over your vehicle, the more power the universal spirit will use through you. And that's what they talk about in this book, in this pamphlet. All the different great thinkers and prophets and teachers that are in this book that I codified in this one pamphlet for you. Because I'm the next gen from them. You're going to be the next gen from me. And all the others to my left and to my right, my comrades, male and female, all of us doing the same thing, learning the same thing. This is just what it is, the way it is. This is the way this life is set up. And it's like people say, oh, you're doing this on purpose. No, I'm not. I am compelled to do this. If I sit down and lay down at night, the moment I get a silent moment, a quiet moment, instantly my mind goes toward, oh, why does this work? How come we do that? Why do we react that way? It's like this incessant, non-stop curiosity that I go through in my mind. And then in the last 40 years, I've had so many aha. Oh, okay, now I got it. Oh, now I see why. Oh, I see something in the movie and they'll say something trigger. And I'll go, why? Why did he say that? Oh, okay. Oh, nothing ever dies. It's just simply transformed. Keanu Reeves said that in the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. He says all these things. If you listen to it, he's dropping science on you. He's dropping keys of truth on you. Love Keanu Reeves. Man still rides on the subway and gives his seat up to people because he understands we own nothing. But yet in the same token, we own everything. And when you have everything already, you don't try to own it physically because you know you're God and you're through everything that is of you. And so why you try to own, don't make sense. And well, hopefully you'll get here and you'll see what I'm talking about. That's why I can totally relate to this brother. Keanu Reeves is just a beautiful person that has his, I don't know, you look at his life and you look at his life story, it's not pretty. So he's been made humble by life, okay? And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I think it helped him to understand, maybe this is what the universe felt needed to happen in order to make him into the person he was so that he could impact me. Because let me tell you, he has impacted me. And I hope he impacts you. So look at the movie Matrix. Look at the movies, Star Wars. Look at the Star Trek series. The lessons are all permeated all throughout these movies. Look at the movies The Day the Earth Stood Still, and there are some other movies that are out there, and some other things on PBS and other public channels this stuff is being screamed and yelled at you from every avenue. Why? Why now? Because it's time. The universal spirit says it's time for us to move to another level. That's why we're getting all of this fight from the corporations and all these people. They want to keep their control. They want to keep their money. They want to really keep their control over us. And the biggest weapon we got was given to us by Bill Clinton and Al Gore and the military, which is really still us because there's tax money that created it. And that's the internet. Unstoppable. Can't charge you for this. This is going to be on YouTube free. And once one person gets a taste, it's been recorded. Can't stop it. Can't stop evolution. Reason you can't stop it, you can't stop evolution. You can't stop God. You can't stop us. Okay? Go with God and feel the power of the omnipotence. Feel the power of the omnipresence that we each are an expression of in our microcosmic selves. And I'm proud to be a microcosmic self, and I don't want to be God. I'm already God anyway, but right now I'm focused on being Russell and giving the information to you that you're supposed to have, and that's all I care about. That's all I care about. I'm already happy. I'm already in heaven, by the way. It's another reason why I'm doing this. I want you to experience the heavenly oneness, the heavenly sense of balance, the heavenly sense of not wanting anything except to keep doing what I'm doing, because I love what I do. I love feeling the way I feel. I love being around people. I love the fact that I love people. I'm not ashamed. I'm not jerking and saying no halfways, trying to say it in a slick way and all that. I love people. Takes a man, takes a brave soul to go ahead and be who you are, and don't try to be what everybody else wants you to be. Stop that. You got to take some martial arts class so you can stand up and be you, then do that. But the one thing about me, I don't want no wimps around me. You're going to work for righteousness and to bring harmony and peace to this world. You can't be no wimp. I don't do wimp. There may be some people that do wimp. I don't do wimp. Okay? You roll with me. You roll. I'm a soldier. I've been in the military, trained, good gobs of martial arts and all kinds of stuff. You know. But the bottom line is, the only reason I did all that is so I can stand up and say I love people. Now, I ain't gonna sugarcoat the word and try to say it slick because it's corny. Corny to who? God don't tell you the air you breathe and you don't try to make it slick. You just get air. Stand up. Say what you mean what you say. I don't like that wimpy, oh, let me just say it, try to be slick. You understand what I'm saying? Never mind all that. Creativity is one thing, but don't be doing it because you scared. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this, to get rid of all this fear. Stand up and be a man. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you're a woman, do the same thing. Stand up and say what you mean and mean what you say. If you make a mistake, apologize. Nothing wrong with that. That's why it's been created. Apologies. Because people make mistakes. That's what makes you perfect, is that you do make mistakes. The question is, how fast do you man up to it? Say, I screwed up. Oops. Care how you say it. Now you want to be funny? Be funny about that. Anyway, take care, family. See you on the next lecture.